All right, so this video is to follow up on force and motion, what do you believe, preconceptions, and every single one of these should be false. With the exception of number 7, all of these first 6 are simply, if you thought any of those were true, you're not understanding Newton's first law. We'll talk more about that later in the notes, but effectively Newton's first law says objects are just going to keep doing what they're doing unless there's a net force on them. In all of these cases, there would be no force acting on it after a split second and when it's in the air. So it shouldn't keep having any kind of force on it. Therefore, there's no force. Force is just a push or a pull and nothing is pushing them. The 7th one gets into Newton's second law we'll talk more about, but effectively this could be at rest with balance forces. In fact, you sitting in your chair, not moving, the force of gravity is pulling you downward, and the normal from the chair is pushing you upwards. Again, we'll talk more about that in the next few days. Now, on this second set of questions about mass and weight, these do vary back and forth. 1 and 2 are false, 3 and 4 are true, 5 and 6 are false, 7 is false, 8 is true, and 9 is false. This gets into mass versus weight. Suffice it to say that we'll talk a lot more about this as the notes go along. I don't think I'm going to explain each and every one of these, but I will say that it's probably useful if you're really curious, at least to preload. I could preload some notes we're going to take, and suffice it to say that the force of gravity is the same thing as weight, whereas weight is equal to mass times acceleration from gravity. And so although on Earth, gravity is always 9.8, gravity's always 9.8 on Earth, and so lots of times we can say, well, basically mass and weight seem the same because we're pretty much always on Earth. A couple of these questions got into places where we were no longer at Earth. Oops, sorry, wrong one. A couple of these questions got into where we were no longer on Earth. We talked about the moon. There's certainly gravity on the moon, therefore there's certainly weight on the moon, but it is less because the gravity is less. And then nowhere in the equation does, for weight or mass, does that have anything to do with if it's moving or not. So the weight and the mass is going to be the same. They'll be different possibly from each other, but definitely the same when they are moving versus when they're stopped. Thank you. Hope that helps and helps you understand that we've got a little bit of work to do this next unit.